Hello and welcome back to the Whistling Podcast. My name is Marian Spraldaki. This is a short episode to tell you what's coming up in Season 2. First of all, I'll be doing a multi-part series about whistling in China, and in particular a phenomenon known as transcendental whistling. Next week I will begin with Part 1, an easy introduction to the subject, a short story called Whistling by a Chinese author named Ge Fei. It is a modern retelling of an old tale of the meeting between the last known practitioners of transcendental whistling. After that, I will summarize the so-called 5,000-year history of China in one episode. As you may know, I have lived in China for 10 years. It doesn't make me an expert, but I have studied a bit of history along the way, and I have visited many of the sites that are important in the history of China. I live in Xi'an, the Chang'an, which was the capital of many dynasties. Before that I lived in Luoyang for 7 years, another ancient capital. From there I will move on to talk about Taoism and its philosophy, and how whistling became involved with it, and then an episode about transcendental whistling in particular. I will finish my China series with a discussion of Sun Tzu's Art of War, and how a general defeated an entire army with whistling. Somewhere in the mix there, I'll be interviewing a comedy improv music group known as Los Chipmunks. Later on as well, I'll be doing a podcast on the Beatles and whistling. It is my goal this year to have conversations with other whistlers. I'm working on my interviewing chops, and I've been trying to make contact with other people in the whistling world. So that is my plan for the beginning of 2023. I'm not so good at following plans, but we'll see how it goes. Goodbye for now, and I'll see you next week on the Whistling Podcast.
Call action.
A call to action.
Call action.
Call to action.
A call to action.
A call to action. A call to action.
You can join the Whistling Podcast group on Facebook. I now have a website, thewhistlingpodcast.com. You can support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/The Whistling Podcast. And I also have a Quora site for discussions, thewhistlingpodcastspace.quora.com. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time on the Whistling Podcast.